Welcome to Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. This podcast is about the journey to a more sustainable future in order for us to be able to do our bit to achieve net zero. I'll be discussing a variety of topics with experts in their field in order to educate and increase our knowledge of clean energy, electric vehicles and the electric vehicle infrastructure. So whether you're an individual wanting to make a difference at home, a small business or a corporate, this podcast is just for you. So on today's episode, I have got Toby Hiles, who is the Strategic Partnerships Director at Grid Smarter Cities. Toby, thank you ever so much for joining me on the podcast.
Hi Liz, thank you very much for the invite. It's great to be here.
So we got talking, I can't remember, it was on LinkedIn, wasn't it? About there was a conversation that came up about queuing with EVs. And there's always, there's always conversations like that, isn't there? So actually, that's kind of how we got chatting. But I just want to do a quick kind of. I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, and I mentioned this to you before. That I was going to tell you this. Yeah. You did a master's in European Environmental Policy and Regulation. That was on your LinkedIn profile. We've got to start off with that one. How did you decide that, and how did you get to where you are now? Because I can totally see the link, but just tell me the journey, will you?
Yeah, I think that's a long time ago, Liz. I think that was back in I did that back in 96, 97, so I'm many years old. I just
I'm not even going there, love.
I was just thinking I did a geography degree. I really liked what I was doing, and I liked the European aspect, and the environmental stuff was really starting to. This is when local authorities had Agenda 21 officers, if that makes any resonance with anyone who's listening to this one. And so I thought,
not me. You have to tell me that one.
Agenda 21. I think it was the local authorities' first footsteps into understanding sustainability and all of that sort of stuff as well. And I wasn't looking local authority at this point. But subsequent after doing my masters, I was having a look around, like who wants to do the things that that I've just learnt about and I've just been writing about,
yes.
And because I like a bit of a, let's call it a debate rather than an argument. I did my thesis on Article 171 of the European, which is effectively taking member states as they were to court for not having delivered on their environmental imperatives. So I was sitting there going, I could take the UK to court on this. Maybe I can get a job. Anyway, so that was kind of what interested me. Less so one of my lecturers at the time, I remember, who was doing a life cycle analysis on a jumbo jet and was trying to trace it back. So if you think about that as scope 1, 2 and 3 emissions, he was doing it way back then, trying to get a lot, So that, and I thought, this is brilliant. This is different. This is new. And I like doing new and different and trying to, poke the bear of the establishment in some way, shape or form. So that sort of shaped me from there on in.
Goodness me. So come on. So, but from then, from then, what have you done to kind of get you to where you are now? Because I always talk to people about the journey, because I think the journey gives it's about introducing people who are watching and listening to this to you and obviously the business. But so what steps have you taken to get to where you are now to be a director?
So I think for the next step, I went to work for the Consumers Association, and do a lot of some of the campaigning stuff around there. I remember bringing it into the EV space, or even into the vehicle space. I remember we had a sister publication to Which magazine, which was Which Car each year. And at one point we made, it's probably not fair to say manufacturer's name, because I don't know what the statute of limitation is around, bad mouthing them, etc. But essentially they had made a change to the little red button on a seatbelt. So instead of it being sunk in so you can't nudge it with your elbow when you're sitting in a car, they'd made it prouder so it was easier to unlock the seatbelt, because its major market in the States, it was a very female buying public, and they had complained to the auto manufacturer that their nails were getting broken as they were trying to take their seatbelt off. So they changed the product in
Okay.
order to make sales, which then made it very unsafe. So I had their global comms director come over and fly over from their base overseas to come and see me in our London office to have a conversation about it. So I was like, this is right up my street. I'm trying to make something safer, making a difference, getting in front of the influencers and having a conversation. And I'm just me having a conversation with these they brought a team of 5 or 6 people with technical engineers and everything else. And I thought, I need more of this. I quite like I need to be out there challenging. And so I did that. Then the London Olympics came along, and I was like, well, I've got to be part of this. I've got to be able to go there and shape how that's going to work for the city of London. So I work for the London Organising Committee that brought all the overlay, all of the sort of adding on the Olympic element to London, and then set up the Olympic and Paralympic Transport Integration Centre, Optic,
Oh,
as it was called
wow.
then, which for the first time, do you believe it? The first time it had all of the police, the local authorities, all of the train and tube running desks, the sort of London Streets Traffic Control Centre had all of those elements all in the same room, so they could all turn to each other and go, "Oh, there's a problem over here," rather than having to get on the phone and talk for it.
Oh, I
So we
love that.
brought that together. So I thought, right, this collaboration stuff's great. We can have everyone in the same room, all driving the same thing, and the amount of change it made was brilliant. So then after that, I think I worked for what was the Technology Strategy Board, which is now UKRI or Innovate UK, to try and set up the Transport Systems Catapult. So I was there for 6 months getting the business case and writing the business case to get it through the Technology Strategy Board and their council, so they unlocked the funds for that. So that was like, brilliant, this is fantastic. We can do lots of wonderful things there. That's now the Connected Places Catapult. There was the Connected and the Transport Systems and the Future Cities were happening at the same time. They're now joined as the Connected Places. There, as part of that, wrote some letters to the Chancellor saying, you should set up the Centre for Connected and Autonomous Vehicles. Here's some evidence. So then was part of the secondment and startup team to set that up, which is a joint DFT and BAYS, sort of unit to try and drive new technology and in the connected and autonomous vehicle space. After that, worked for myself for a bit, trying to link up innovators and funds. Then worked at Appy Way, digitising the curbside, and then here I am now at Grid Smarter Cities. So we're operationalising that digitisation of that curbside for freight servicing and delivery fleets. And here I am, and that's why
So
we're talking today.
I was going to say, what a journey. It totally links up now, doesn't it? I can see all your background now. I can see how it kind of links into what you're actually doing. So do you want to explain a little bit about Grid Smarter Cities
Yeah.
and why you joined it specifically, and kind of and what actual what operational things you're kind of doing within it?
So I joined Grid probably about 3.5 years ago now, and effectively again it was like great. I was doing some stuff for myself at the time, and obviously I'd said I've been doing some of the mapping stuff, digitisation of that, and I thought, well, actually need to turn that into rather than providing a digital twin for want of a better phrase of something, actually now how do we form a practical solution. I think I like to think of it as being at the cutting edge of common sense, sitting there saying, here's an existing problem. And then how do we get a solution in that doesn't rely on waiting 10 years for machine learning, AI, robots, and whether they're, those ones you see at Milton Keynes that are, sort of delivery robots, etc. It's like, okay, these people are doing stuff now. You've got, challenges around curb spaces disappearing because cities quite rightly want to be using, more active travel. So, more people and bicycles, etc. And so you want to make those places that, well, it's lovely to have a sort of a coffee and croissant culture, but you need to have the trucks to be able to deliver the coffee and the croissants in the first place. So they're struggling.
Yeah.
So what do we do? So that was the reason why I joined Grid, because our product Kerb is effectively, think about it as Airbnb for curbside. You have a local authority that's got this curbside asset that it wants to operate or let in a different way. And then you've got on the other side, you've got some freight servicing and delivery operators who want to access that curbside, but don't currently have a mechanism apart from first come, first served, which sometimes leads to
Yes.
congestion. It's the same way that you wouldn't design an airport now and have aircraft just landing as they feel like it. It would cause chaos and there'd probably be accidents. Hence, what you
Yeah.
see on the the streetscape of every major town and city in the built up environment. So that's it. So that's what we do is we have a two-sided platform that effectively manages that curbside through booking slots and particular use cases. So the local authority can talk about what vehicles they want to be there, whether they want them to be EV, whether they want them to be cargo bikes, whether they don't really mind who they are, or whether they want them to be just guys who are delivering in big trucks, small trucks, etc. So that's the part we do for the local authority. You manage their curbside, and then the other side again, just talking about with the local authority's desires in place, we will manage that and offer that out to the operators, so they can get their so they can do their deliveries in a very efficient and first time every time fashion.
So basically, what you're saying is, if I go, so at the moment you've got projects that have rolled out, haven't you, in London? So you said you've got
Yep.
Westminster, Southwark, Lambeth, and some other projects that are secret squirrel that you won't tell me. That's fine. but it's but it's basically about providing drivers, commercial drivers mostly,
Yep.
with the ability to be able to book a slot in advance to actually deliver whether it's that coffee or that croissant,
Absolutely.
so that
Yeah.
they've got somewhere to park. Because I mean, London, good grief, it's, I've got people I know that will not drive around London. I have and I will drive around London, but it's not the easiest, is it? So actually trying to find somewhere to park if you're a delivery driver must be a real challenge. So how does it connect up? How do you connect the Kerb platform to the people that need it? How does it work?
Yeah. So again, so if we'll work with the local authority to find some spaces they want to operate differently, or some roads, some sectors, some parts of that, and then we'll engage with the operators, sort of the DHLs, the DPDs, etc., that we know work in that area, because we'll see those vehicles are out there, and also we'll speak to the businesses that are in those areas as well, saying, okay, who delivers your stuff, how does it work, and you put together sort of a process and package, and then it's literally go onto the platform. We help onboard them onto the platform, and they can book and they can upload lots of drivers and lots of vehicles as the web app. So quite often some of the bigger organisations will have a transport manager that will book all of the slots and will book all of which drivers and which vehicles going places. And then there's a driver app as well, so the driver can sit there and go, why has Bob booked me in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? I always do number 3 before I do number 2. So then they have the ability to change that and amend that themselves based on what they know, or if there's some congestion around there, they can change it. So it's a fully flexible and dynamic setup for the driver. And then if they get to the space, and quite often people ask me, okay, so I've booked this and I get there and, Liz, you've booked the space and I've left my car in there or something, or I left my van in there, and you're going, well, this is no good to me because I booked that. I want the ability to get and do my job. So we have a button on the app which we call the rogue vehicle button. It's all blazoned in red, the sort of button. And you press that, and it does two things. It will send a message to the enforcement team, because we integrate with the local authority's enforcement team, and it will ping a message off to them to say, there's some nefarious character who's left their vehicle in there, please come and enforce. But that's lovely, but it's no good to you because you've still got a container of stuff out the back that you still need to deliver. So what it will do is immediately it will create a digital dispensation, as we call it. So it will create a nearby ghost bay that you can't see on the app, that we've agreed already with the local authority, that says, here's a backup in case someone's done this. You can park there, and then when the civil enforcement officer or traffic warden or parking attendant comes around and puts your vehicle registration mark in their little handheld device, it will turn around and say, Liz was really, she used the platform. She was trying to be a compliant and lovely person, even though she's on a double yellow line and shouldn't be able to park there. She's allowed to do that for this particular, this particular time because she's booked on the platform. So it gives the delivery driver or operator an alternative. Whereas before, if they didn't have Kerb, they wouldn't be able to do that, and they'd have to circle around the block, which obviously which increases time, congestion, pollution, etc. So local authorities are seeing the benefit of being able to allow a more efficient access to curbside, and operators are seeing the same thing.
So, right, you've just said double yellow lines. Now everybody sees double yellow lines, especially in London. Goes, can't touch them. So Kerb actually these ghost bays can be on double yellows. Flipping
Yes.
heck.
Yeah. So we call them virtual loading bays because they have two elements. So they're the backup for the first one I described, where someone's booking a place. That can be a permit loading bay. So a normal loading bay, you know what a loading bay looks like, and all we do is add a booking wrapper over there that says this, these times, these vehicles, and you showcase it there. And the virtual is a backup for that, or it can be a standalone bay. So really boringly, for those vehicle types that have got health and safety imperatives that override traffic regulations. For example, if you think about the reason why you might see a Sainsbury's or a Tesco lorry parked on a double yellow line that covers a bit of a cycle lane, etc., and everyone's going, what are they doing there? It's because their health and safety means they have to be close to pull their cages to the front door, the same way that a brewing dray or a brewery lorry delivering kegs of beer has to be close to the cellar door. So the idea being there, so we can create that digital permissions layer effectively, and we've got the virtual loading bays deployed as standalone virtual loading down in Lambeth. They're live now as part of another project, and some other ones that are coming in a couple of other boroughs within the realms of that program that I can't tell you about because they haven't signed the dotted line yet. But the negotiations are there, coming soon. So then there'll be more of those across London as well, and out into other parts of the country as well that are in the pipeline that are close to being announced, but not quite yet.
But this sounds brilliant, because I was going to say, I suppose mostly when you talk about loading and unloading, it's only a specific short period of time, isn't it? Because that driver wants to get there, drop off or pick up, and be off onto the next part of their journey, don't they?
Yeah.
But actually, if you can, I suppose, if Kerb can give them that ability, or their fleet managers that ability, or whoever is managing their operations, to book these slots, then at least they know, like you're saying, they're not having to circle around for ages trying to find a place. I was going to say, does the local authority agree those ghost bays then? Or does that? Yeah.
No, exactly. We agree with them the actual location of the bays, and sometimes they may say it's got to be this specific little part of a bay here. I think about it. If you're looking at a high street, it will say, just park between Smiths and Boots, and you will know as the driver where that is, because you can see, you can see what that is. And sometimes they say, actually, please park sensibly on this particular part of the road, but it'll be quite clear what it is. But absolutely. So obviously, what we want to do is ensure that the operators can deliver, and the businesses can be serviced without impacting on unsafe practices. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. So we'll agree with the local authority. Here's the next best place that you can do your delivery if someone's actually in your space, or here's the areas where we allow them to operate. And again, as I say, they can specify whether they want that fleet to be, they can put cargo bikes in there, even though they're not legally enforceable against. It starts to nudge behaviour. So you start to get better behaviour from large operators with HGVs and all the way down to cargo bikes by saying, look, this is how we want you to operate in this space, and it'll be better for everyone. Otherwise, there's conflict at that curbside.
And actually, that level of education and getting, encouraging that behaviour, if we look at the wider landscape, and we kind of, I was going to talk to you about EV charging, for
Yep.
example. Looking at the wider landscape, if we can start encouraging that better behaviour, then that's all, that will hopefully make things different when we have the transition, the full, when more people are transitioned to electric, whether that's a van, a truck, or Joe and Joanne Public in a car, isn't it? That's going to be
And it's
better.
and that's a really good, really good point to say that we've got some bookable bays in Westminster, and they are EV only bays. So the only vehicles that can book in there are our EV fleet, and our platform does all of the DVLA lookup and works out that if you try and use your diesel truck to book a spot, it'll go you can't do that. And quite rightly, some of the operators we're talking to go, oh, does that mean there's a charger in that bay? And you go, not, there isn't a charger in that bay now, but what Westminster want to do is to see, rather than build it, they will come and go, oh, I spent all that money on putting a charger in, and then people go, well, I don't need one there. And you've got this, a white elephant of a piece of infrastructure in there. What they're trying to say is, here's the opportunity. So as operators, if you really want on-street chargers, which some big operators do. I mean, Elaine Kerr, the CEO of UK CEO of DPD, has said she needs local authorities to do better and wants to see chargers in loading bays to be able to extend the life of their fleet. So anyway, so in Westminster, they're EV only, and the idea that the council want to do from that is to get nudge behaviour to people to start to use those to book it in the first place, and then showcasing if there's enough use of those particular bay locations, then it starts to build the business case for them internally to say, now we need to add a charger because these people are saying they want to do that. So it's enabling that transition, but it's nudging the behaviour, providing the data, and that data can then inform the business case, which will then, hey presto, we'll have a charger in the place where operators are, comfortable using, want to use it. And in this particular instance, outside one of them on Russell Street in Westminster, is outside a pub called the Marquis of Anglesey, and Carlsberg Marston's will do the delivery to that, and they do it with a 16-ton, I think 16 or 21-ton EV fleet already, right?
Oh,
So they've got
wow.
one EV fleet in London, and they say, look, if you put a charger, it'd be wonderful. They're going to be there at the curbside for an hour, delivering all the beer and also taking away. Remember, people like the brewers, they do reverse logistics as well. They take away the empties, they take away empty plastic,
Yes.
oil, all sorts of stuff as well. So why not have them as they pull into that bay? For the first thing as they arrive, first thing to do is plug in. They've got an hour's worth of charge whilst they are doing their job anyway. So it's Sam Clark, isn't it, who says, I charge because I've stopped rather than stop needing to charge. So it's exactly that, but on a freight level, and then all of a sudden you're starting to aid that transition rather than that particular example thinking, oh, do I still keep my EV fleet in there? It's a bit, if there's a bit of traffic or I can't get to where I need to be and I've got around the block a few times, I'm starting to get a bit nervous about my state of charge and all those other lovely arguments they have around there. So it's enabling the certainty for those fleets who are maybe worried about making that step to actually see that they can actually help transition that space.
That's really good, and that again, that behaviour, or encouraging that behaviour, it just, what you were just saying then reminded me. I was reading a post from Professor Colin Heron he's up in the, I don't know whether you know him, University of Newcastle, and he was talking about the transition to electric generally, and sort of the post that he'd shared, there was a number of presentation slides in there, and I was kind of skimming through them and thinking, because he's great at challenging people. He's calling that up. That's why I've said he shouldn't retire. He can't retire because he's kind of one of the only ones.
And he does a
So
great
again,
line in waistcoats as well.
oh God, he does, absolutely, absolutely. But he was talking about whether we are doing it the wrong way, and actually thinking about what you've just said about encouraging the behaviour, and you're kind of setting the standard and setting the scene, aren't you, for people? And people are seeing that it's there. And then when you get that utilisation, then
Yeah.
that's when hopefully it'll kind of, things will start changing, and people will kind of go, oh yeah, so
Yeah.
there are some bays there, and I've seen cars in and out of that, or vans in and out of that, so let's go for it.
And I think you're absolutely right. I think it's providing that data to enable those things to happen. So I talked about I have this rogue vehicle button that goes, oh, there's someone in my space. Now think about it, if you're a stretch of curbside, and every now and then a bit like a, don't take this the wrong way, a bit like a prison guard, the civil enforcement officer walks past on their beat, and sees somebody and gives them a ticket, right? That's one instant that you might find there, where actually that piece of curbside, after they've gone, might have 20, 30, however many other people who are using it incorrectly. Whereas once you put so the only data point you have is like one out of potentially 20 or 30 times, whether it's been used correctly or incorrectly. Whereas if you put a digital layer over the top of that, and you require everyone to sort of book, you then get the understanding of, oh, hang on a minute, over the week or over the few months, there's been a lot of this rogue vehicle button pushed, where there's a bit of conflict between 11:30 and 12:30 on a Thursday. Then you can start to target the enforcement down there. You go down there and see why is that? What's the problem? What happens at this time? And so then you start to get the data. And then, of course, when an authority's sitting there going, oh, right, well, now we're going to take all these loading bays and going to turn it into a nice pedestrian realm, whatever. You go, well, okay, well, here's some data about how it's been used over the last however long. At least then you've got an informed business case, rather than somebody sort of doing a finger in the air going, well, I think we should do this, or we write a policy about that based on, I don't know, 1 week's worth of observation from a transport consultant that doesn't take into account any seasonality or any change in environment. So you start to get a richer data set that allows you to inform business case and inform better decisions. And that's effectively
Because
what
the
we're
thing
trying
is,
to do.
yeah, because I was going to say, the thing is, you can't argue with data, can you? If you've got the data there,
Yeah,
you cannot argue with it.
yeah.
As long as you know that it's accurate and up to date, then yeah, absolutely get you.
Yeah, because it turns you want to turn data into information, into real-time information, into real-time actionable information, real-time actionable information into real-time personalised information, and all of a sudden you've got so many different ways you can exploit that. And I think again, and that's what some of the operators we're working with are seeing. Go, well, hang on a minute. I have to use a vehicle of this size, which is you know the one that we have to use because it's small enough to turn around in case we can't get to where we need to be, and I have to do that every single day, twice a day, to deliver to this store. Whereas actually, operationally, for us from a distribution network perspective, I'd much rather take our bigger vehicle and do it once every 3 days. So you're doing that consolidation piece, but I can't do that if I can't guarantee access to that space. But now they can guarantee access to that space, and they can make challenges and sit there and go, well, actually, I'm now delivering more operationally efficiently for me because I'm taking a bigger vehicle, but I'm also making less impact on the environment in the local area because I'm bringing in a bigger lorry 3 times a week rather than smaller lorries 6 times a week. And you sit there and you go, that's what we can, that's what we've enabled those guys to make their operational changes. That's efficient. That's lovely for them. But also you get socio and, environmental and economic benefits for the local authority as well. So just by doing things, is it Chaplin, modern times, he was just making little tiny adjustments. Just as long as you make it a little bit better each time. Oh gosh, I'm taking me back to my masters now. ISO 14,000 environmental. As long as you start making tiny little changes, and that's what we're trying to do here on the Kerbside. Is just trying to make changes to behaviour, changes to provision, changes to booking, changes to digitalisation, small step at a time. And there you go. You start to get efficiencies of how Kerbside is used.
And for those, I was going to say, you talking about so small incremental changes, and I know you can see it, Toby, and those that are listening won't be able to see it, but there's a word that's in a picture on a wall behind me. It's in Japanese and it's in English, which is called Kaizen, which is
Yeah.
small incremental changes. And I totally get you because that's what I'm all about, and that's what we need to be doing.
Yeah.
So well done, you.
Yeah.
It is brilliant. Let's talk about, because we've had, this is how we started our discussion in the first
Mm.
place. So you've talked about how bays, say for example in Westminster, in London, wherever, can be made into kind of EV bays. But
Yeah.
we were talking about, at peak times for EV charging. So in lots of peak areas, in future, there is a possibility that there are going to be queues. I looked at something recently on social media saying that even last weekend there were queues,
Yeah.
depending on the time of year, the time of day, etc., etc. How can Kerb help with EV charging and in order to reduce those queues or potential
Yeah,
for them?
absolutely. I think that it's a really good time to to think about those as well, because I mean, imagine if you were the amount of, obviously, excuse me, the amount of vehicles that if you're driving somewhere and thinking, well, actually my car talks to the map, which talks to the charging network that says, oh, I'm going to be, here's the charger I need on my route somewhere. Fantastic. If you could just press the little button on there that says, book it as well at the same time, that would be amazing. And I think the charge point regulations, as they as they come through, I think there's one requirement on there, is probably a bit later on than now, that says the charger has to return whether it's free, reserved. I think I've seen the word reserved on there. So again, the charge points will have to then tell the outside, to the outside world, and say, hey, I'm free or I'm not free. So why not be able to do something with that, rather than just sort of thinking, oh, it's free, and then turning off a motorway, for example, and then by the time you get to the charger, it's not free. That's frustrating. So if you think about it as the customer journey, if you can in advance book that, why would you not? But why would you not do that? And I think it certainly helps on a sort of congested. I think you're talking about some of the stuff around motorway service stations, etc., that you've seen those big long queues. Yeah, if all of those people could reserve those in the place, you wouldn't need to have 2 or 3 people out in the car park, trying to manage a queue, and you wouldn't have to worry about that. And the same way that we do that on the on street now. And I think what Kerb enables you to do is to do that on street now and also off street. So if you think about it as trying to utilise, we're talking about there not being enough charge points, or across the country to do that. If you think about just trying to enable what you have and sweat the assets that you have in a more efficient manner, think about it as for a bus depot. They've got loads of DC chargers in there. Buses are charging up overnight, and they'll disappear out in the daytime. You have an asset there, and I think it's the AFP, isn't it, with Paul Hollick, who's talking about how do you get those guys to share that asset. Because I mean, if you're like a go-ahead depot in London and you're sitting there thinking, wow, this is amazing, I've got all these fleets, these chargers. How do I get people in there? You don't want to open it up to the great unwashed general public, because you want to know who's going in there, because you've got some challenges around health and safety and everything else. So how do you get those fleets to share? And we can help with that, because you can get a booking system in place for that as well. So Kerb can help transition and reduce some of the challenges around chargers and being able to book them. And also in the consumer space, it can reduce icing as well, because if you've got a charge point that can't be booked, then it's like, okay, that one's someone's in that space, okay, you can go to the next one, but at least you start to book around it. You create the efficiency there. So we like to see ourselves as a sort of a bit of a puzzle piece that allows that transition to electric fleet, and it also helps link up the on and the off street environment. So the off street being the car park environment and depots, etc. So you can sit there and say, as a fleet or as an individual, that actually you can go through one app and start to access, a depot, an off-street car park, and stuff on the street as well. I mean, we're kind of at the space now where I know of examples in Oxfordshire where they've done loads of great work in electrifying their, or putting chargers, I should say, in some of their surface level car parks, which are great, for residents who haven't got somewhere to park. You go in there in the evening and it's full of, delivery vans charging up overnight, which is great. They're getting utilised, which is fantastic. But as you say, as more and more, fleet and more consumers start to make the transition to electric vehicles, those are going to become under more stress and pressure, and you probably want a known fleet, if you can, to push them somewhere slightly different if there's a better place for them at a different time. So it's trying to manage the supply and demand in the best way possible, and that will be a different model. As the number of chargers rise, the number of vehicles rise, the model will need to shift. And all we're trying to do is say, why not book it, and then at least when it's available, when it's not available, for who, what time, however long, and what price you want to charge for it.
See that, and that totally makes sense. It's funny you saying that. There is a charger not far from us. It's about 5 minutes drive from here, and it's always got delivery drivers kind of plugged in, which is great because obviously the charger's being utilised, and it's it's kind of it's working all the time because there's always somebody on there. But like you say, as time goes on, I can imagine the I won't call them the great unwashed, but
Sorry.
the general public. No, it's fine.
I never know which term to use. General public, consumer. Yeah.
I know exactly what you're saying, and it makes me laugh anyway. So, but so the general public will be pointing a finger and going, "Why are you on that charger?" Because we need it, because we've just done the school run and we need to make sure that we've got enough charge for the next day because we haven't got a drive. And that kind of stuff. So there are going to be some finger pointing. I was going to say, do you think, is there going to be an option at some point in future where you can say, for example, you've got Kerb, you've got your Kerb app, but you've got your on the charge, say you've got a small hub, for example, like I say, this one near us it's only 2 chargers, so for connectors, but would you be able to book that charger in advance through Kerb and it actually say, unable to, this is reserved at so and so time? Would that be possible?
Yeah.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, I think that's the sort of position we're going for, is to say, because then you have the ability to, if you think about your customer journey, you think, oh, where am I going? So you might then book it, and then you're paying the parking, and you're paying the charging, and then you're doing the paying. So you're booking, parking, charging, and paying, and you want to do that in one easy step. So that's and I think for general public. There'll also be access fairly soon, I think, generally in this world, to what's coming, the national parking platform, which allows you as a general person, as a driver, to go into a car park, and if it's was say like a payment for it by, it was an app car park paid by Ringo or something. I don't know if these are the tie-ups, but you go, I like my pay by phone app. You will be able to pay. And normally, before you'd have to have the same way that charge cards. I've seen lots of pictures when people fanning out all the charge, the cards they've got for it.
Yeah.
Similar sort of stuff. Loads of apps. You'll be able to do it in one place. You'll be able to access the national park. So you can pay anywhere you like, because you like the pay by phone app, for example. That's the one that's in a nice colour for you, and you like the drop down menu. And then it will just go into a clearinghouse behind the scenes that will make sure that the car park owner and the other payment people will get what they need to be. So, again, it always strikes me as that being the same as when you open up a bit of the mobile phone network. So, you may have your mobile phone network running off the back of the 3 network, and I've got an ID mobile contract which is coming off which jumps off the back of the 3 network. But it gives me a different customer experience. So you're going to get the stage where going into the the national parking platform, or I think Keith Brown at Paythrough said, a national payment platform may be the next way forward as well, doing exactly this payment and an EV charging and all that sort of stuff. They all go into that space, and then those players within the ecosystem will then try and come out to you as a consumer with trying to get you to use their particular method or their particular app, by giving you a better customer experience. Oh, if you use mine at this car park, you can go and have a coffee down there for nothing. If you use this one. So again, it starts to sort of, the economies of scale will then drive innovation, which then allow people to do more things. It becomes a more pleasurable experience.
Because the other thing is, it's really important to have the right signage in the car parks to tell you when you're parking to charge, whether your parking's included or whether you have to pay for your parking separate. Me and my husband, we went down near Bournemouth over Easter, and we put the car on charge, and it was a local authority car park, but there was nothing to say if you're charging, you need to pay for the car park. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to risk getting a ticket by putting it on charge and not get. But there was nothing, so it's possible we might not have had to. But I'm glad that we did, just in case. But there was absolutely nothing. There was nothing on the charger. There was nothing in the car park at the payment machine or anything like that. So it's that level of signage, isn't it, that you need to be able to know, what do I have to go there and there? But if you have it all on one thing, then it'll make a massive difference, won't it?
Again, I mean that's a really common occurrence in charging in the charging environment. Do I have to pay for this? And what happens if, because if it's in it's a surface level car park there, if it's an off street in a sort of multi-story, and they're like, well, actually we've only got a certain amount of chargers and we don't want you to get up past 80%. We want you to move out and that, but you're not coming back for 6 hours because you're doing something else, but actually you're going to be topped up in 3. Or what do you do then? Is that a penalty charge that comes in? Is it a increased rate? And again, it's really anxious making, isn't it? And you don't know where you go. And it's the same with I think for the freight servicing and delivery vehicles that we do, and trying to bring them into a bookable bay. They're like, and I've booked it on the app, but I'm still a little bit unclear as I look at the sign on the sign on the street. So we have a digital sign that we put into some of those bays, which shows all the booking periods. So it'll show your vehicle registration markers booking now between this time and then upcoming and all that sort of stuff. The upcoming times that are available. So there's 2 things. One, it's thanks very much. Yeah, my app says the same thing as there. Great, I'm in the right place. But also, if someone else is sort of trying to park in there, you go, well, it's reserved for me. And when someone goes, I don't see your name on it, and you go, well, look, on the sign there is my reg, and I have. But right, okay, I'll just move on. And then the back of the sign as well allows local authorities to talk about air quality information and other bits and pieces they want to talk to their residents and their businesses about as well. So it's about giving that whole sort of, and I hate the word ecosystem, but I'm going to use it, that whole ecosystem type thing. It's like that connectivity around your place and your destination and why you're going there and for what reason, and you sort of feel part of that as well. So you're not just an interloper. You're there because you've got a reason to do, and that you're helping enable that place to be better than it probably was before.
I really like this. I think it's a brilliant idea, and I think actually what you're doing is fantastic. I'd love to see some charge point operators start working with you, and making sure that actually in peak periods that there's ability, or even not, just being able to manage queuing anyway, rather than kind of knocking on a window going, excuse me, how long are you going to be? Excuse me, how long are you going to be? I've done that. I did that at Christmas. I went, happy Christmas, are you going to be here long?
Yeah, I mean,
but not everybody does that.
No, but it also, I mean, there's not everybody does that because that they're not as personable as you, or they might be a bit worried about doing that, and how somebody might react, and it's obviously
Exactly.
and you don't want to feel unsafe doing that. Obviously, the great work that ChargeSafe do in trying to make sure those things, places are well lit and all that sort of stuff in a charging environment. You want, if you can enable a better way and a safer way of doing it with less conflict and more comfort around that whole feeling and experience, then why would you not? Because it takes away that conflict, which takes away the stress, which takes away any of the worry about that sort of stuff. So if there's a way of doing it better, then I'm with you. Let's do it, right?
Absolutely. This has been really, really interesting talking to you, Toby. I think I'd love to see all of this being rolled out, because I think, like you said, you called it cutting edge of common sense. Not half. It really, really is. I think it's absolutely fantastic. For those of you who want to get hold of Toby, he's on LinkedIn. The website is gridsmartercities.com. I will share all of this in the show notes when this goes out, and yeah, we've got to see this building, because I think actually that kind of innovation, love it. Always say it. I love innovation, but yeah, it's been really, really interesting talking to you, Toby.
Well, Liz, and you, and thanks very much, and keep up the keep up the defunding of all of the challenges around EVs and all the opportunities as well. So, yeah, really, really enjoyed this. Thanks very much for the invite.
Thank you. Oh, it's been brilliant. Listen, thank you to Toby, and thank you to everybody watching and listening. And I'm going to say, see you later. I'll speak to you next time. Bye. Thanks for watching this episode of Electric Evolution. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons to stay connected with us. And if you're inspired by our journey towards a sustainable future and want to support our mission on a monthly basis, please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Electric Evolution Podcast. Your support really helps us to bring the latest insights and discussions in the world of clean energy, electric vehicles, electric vehicle charging and sustainability to you. If a regular subscription isn't what you're looking for, you can always consider buying us a coffee. Just head over to www.buymeacoffee.com/Electric Evolution Podcast. Every cup helps us to keep the electric evolution moving forwards. And if you're curious about our work in the EV infrastructure sector at Full Circle Continuous Improvement, why not visit us at www.fullcircleci.co.uk to find out more. And if you want to send me a message, you can always email me on liz@fullcircleci.co.uk. And finally, please don't forget to share this podcast if it's sparked your interest. And let's keep spreading the word about all of these topics that we're covering. So, until next time, see you soon. Bye.